So how about that time when somebody took worthless trinkets and turned them into significant objects for cash that just took off? Well, I'm going to tell that story right now. Hey, it's Don Skaggs again with Empowered Inventing TV, where we try to help you help other people by taking your great innovation, the right opportunity, mixing that with sound wisdom so you can turn them into real things like products and businesses. Now today I want to talk to you about a couple of guys that did a remarkable thing, I thought, and what we can learn from it as inventors and entrepreneurs. In July of 2009, Rob Walker and Josh Glenn conducted what I would call a remarkable experiment. They bought 100 ordinary used objects from thrift stores and garage sales. Things like a jar of marbles, a meat thermometer, a wooden mallet, a toy pink horse, things like that. Each item cost an average of $1.29, and then they got some volunteers and asked them to write a short fictional story next, and then they put that next to each picture of each item. Well, I'm going to get to that in a minute. But anyway, they asked them to write a fictional story on each item. Now, once they had all these stories together, they listed them, each of these objects, on eBay. And instead of putting in just a description of the item, they took this descriptive story, this fictional story, and they put it next to a picture of this ordinary object, this little trinket that they were selling. Now they pointed out, they weren't trying to be deceitful or anything. They pointed out the story was fictional in each one of those posts. And 5 months later, all 100 items sold for a total of $3,612.51. They had originally paid $128.74 for these 100 trinkets from, again, garage sales, thrift stores, whatever. So now this isn't a video on how to make money on eBay by buying junk and selling it. Although I suppose somebody ought to try that sometime. If you do, let me know, because I'll tell your story too. Because it'd be very interesting, I think, if you were able to do the same thing. So, but why? The important part here is, why is this story, which I think is pretty amazing, why is that important for inventors and entrepreneurs? Well, I'm going to tell you why. And in Walker and Glenn's actual words, they said narrative transforms insignificant objects into significant ones. It's the power of people are willing to pay more for something that comes with a good story. Good stories are powerful. There is a power in telling the story and getting that story across. That isn't being gimmicky either, because selling something with a good story doesn't trick them into paying more for it, more money for it at all. It actually becomes worth more to them because of the story that is touching their hearts. It's actually worth more to them. There's a word for this. It's called, or a phrase for this. It's called perceived value. If they see it as a perceived value. And I can tell you how this relates to an invention. I was talking with one of our inventors not too long ago, and he was talking about, he had this commoditization mentality with it. He says, I don't know, I think I could probably sell maybe each one of them for $10 or something. And but it was actually it really was a significant object. It was a significant invention. And I kind of had to encourage him to think of this as, no, this isn't just a common commodity type item. That's a race to the bottom as far as price and income and usually failure. But no, this is significant, and it's significant. This is a much higher grade product, and you have to paint that picture in those customers' minds for them to see it as not a cheap commodity. They're not going to the grocery store and buying a gallon of milk. No, they are buying something that is a much higher grade and on a much different level. And you see this, with so many different products. So you need to, the picture you create in people's minds is going to create your product's worth to them. So guess what? If you tell a bad story, if you tell a commoditized, well, this is just another one of these things here. No, if you do that, then they're going to say, oh yeah, it's a commodity. I'll give you a nickel for it. No, I'll tell you what, a couple pennies. But if you create the value in their mind, now, again, you're not tricking them, you're not deceiving them in any way, but you are creating the true value that it is, the one that they're not seeing yet, by the way. A lot of people that just look at something, they go, no. I had a customer once, and I used to call them hospital laboratories, and I'd show him a sample of something, and he'd throw it back across the table at me and said, I can get it for half price. Doesn't matter what it was, no matter what the price was. That was always his pat answer, and he was just looking at it. But when I would tell him the story about it, and why it was more valuable, and why it was better than what he was getting now, that created the value in his mind. So this crosses every industry, every genre you can think of. If you're creating this in their minds, then what you're doing is you're painting the true picture of the worth and the value of the item that you are selling. And in that vein, if your product is not selling, it could be your optics are just bad. You're not creating that image in their mind with not just the storytelling, but all the other things that do tell the story, that do paint the picture in their mind of, what's your website look like? Number one, is 1990 called and wants your website back? How about your sales sheet? Kind of the same thing? Does it look dated? Does it not pop? Does it not really relay? You say, well, Don, you don't understand. I have written everything about it out, and there's really, really small margins, but it's just all this really great narrative print. No, they're going to get bored and wander off. Don't make it engaging. Again, you are creating an impression. You're creating the true value of your product in their mind. What's the packaging look like? Is that helping to create a good picture or a bad picture? Do you have an engaging story that goes with your product? Now, you don't want to give them the origin story of, well, let me tell you how I came up with this, and you see, no, don't do that. Give them, again, it's got to work for them. It's not about you. It's not about your story. It is about the story that you want them to create in their mind and to see the true value and what's valuable about it to them, not to you, but to them. So can you put this story? Can you take this story and can you distill it down? Again, this is why a sell sheet shouldn't be like like a scientific study that's just a whole bunch of words crammed together on a page. Can you distill your story down, make it compelling to start with, but then distill it down into an elevator pitch or an escalator pitch? You know what the difference between an elevator pitch and an escalator pitch is? You're passing somebody on an elevator, it's got to be super quick. So with all that, how can you add a good story to your product to make it worth more to the people that you talk to? How can you do that? Be thinking about that. If you've got any interesting answers to that, please provide them in the comments. Would love to hear from you. So if you're looking for more, you might want to check out Empowered Embedding Academy's upcoming course called Sell Like QVC. and which is, by the way, you talk about people that tell a story to sell stuff. QVC's masters at that, and we that's what we do in this Empowered Inventing Academy course. So you can find that at empoweredinventing.com. If it's not out yet, send us, sign up and ask specifically for that course, and we will get it to you as soon as we can. Again, I'm Don Skaggs. This is Empowered Inventing TV. Like, subscribe, help us to build our tribe, and I'll look to see you at the next meeting, workshop, maybe one of those online courses, or on the next video.